There is money and there is growth in the little things, right? Those small improvements that if you address and do it consistently can have a massive impact on your bottom line, right? In terms of how much money you make, how much money you save, how productive you are. But often we think we're too busy to focus on them, or we don't think they're important enough. But there is money in the little things. Let me give you some examples. Last year, the Australian Tax Office changed some of the wording, just a sentence on the letters they sent out to draw in overdue tax bills. So they didn't change the entire letter, they just changed the sentence in the wording. The revenue increased from overdue payments by 17%. There's a little restaurant here in Port Macquarie where I live who figured out how to make plating more efficient. In other words, how they serve meals onto the plate. And in doing so, they didn't have to rearrange the entire kitchen. All they did was rearrange where the plates were. And in doing so, they saved, get this, 16 footsteps per plating. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you figure out or when you think about how many meals a restaurant serves over a year, it's huge. And then they actually worked out that in terms of productivity, that was the same as having to hire an additional kitchen hand. So what's that? Like 30, 40 grand, right? Client I was working with here in Australia found that their team, their people all over the country were printing out documents on single sides of paper, right? Single sheet paper. So they put a policy into place, very simple, right? To print double-sided. Then we calculated how many reams of paper that actually saved and how much, or what was the cost of that. Turns out they saved $12,000 a year. And think about the environmental impact, right? And finally, in the book Nudge, there's a great example of a taxi company in America. So when you go to pay your taxi fare and you do it with a credit card, you use PayWave, right? And it would automatically come up with an option for how much tipping you wanted to give. So it didn't ask you, do you want to tip? It just asked you what you wanted to tip. So it gave you three options, $15, $20, $25. Now most people will go for the middle. They'll go for the default, right? So most people would just pay tip of 20 bucks. So then what they did is they changed the amount. That's all they did, right? So instead of 15, 20, 25, they made it 20, 25, 30. Guess what? People still, the majority of people still chose the middle option, but now it was $25, an increase of $5 per tip. One small change, massive impact. Now, as I said earlier, sometimes we just don't chase these little things because we're too busy, we're too overwhelmed, or we just don't think they're important. But what if? What if you spent 15 minutes each week and just sat and thought about what you've done over the past week and what could be improved? There is money in those gaps. Just 15 minutes a week. And by the way, I'll put it out there if you want, message me. I'll spend 15 minutes with you to help you identify them. Talk soon.